No one believes me when I say it, but the truth is this: my teacher nearly got us killed on purpose. During a real school shooting, while gunshots echoed closer and closer, she stood in front of 23 terrified students and ordered us to stay seated, threatening to expel anyone who dared to hide. And the worst part? She looked calm, almost satisfied. 1 year later, when I watched her being led out of her apartment in handcuffs, I finally understood why. I was in Miss Brown's AP history class when the announcement crackled across the PA system. Lockdown, lockdown, this is not a drill. The words alone should have been enough to make anyone act. We'd practiced this 100 times since kindergarten. Lights off, hide, silence, survive. Every student reacted instantly, chairs scraping, backpacks dropping, until Miss Brown stepped in front of the room like a wall. Her expression was sharp, the kind she wore whenever someone breathed wrong in her class. "Get back to your desks, now!" Her voice sliced through the room. A few kids froze mid-step. I hesitated, confused. "Miss Brown, that's the lockdown signal." "The only procedures you follow," she snapped, "are mine. Sit down or you all get zeros on your presentations." Just like that, everyone obeyed. Years of conditioning under her iron authority kept most of us glued to our seats. Miss Brown loved control more than she loved teaching, strict about the tiny things, lazy about everything else. I once slipped a whole paragraph about SpongeBob into an essay just to prove she didn't read our work. She gave me a 98, but then the PA repeated it. "Code red, this is a code red. All staff and students follow lockdown procedures immediately." They never repeated code reds during drills. My stomach twisted. That heavy, sinking dread you feel before a test you know you'll fail. Only this was worse. Deadlier. I stared at the still-lit hallway. No one else's lights were on. Every other classroom had gone dark. And then I heard it. Not fireworks. Not doors slamming. Gunshots. Everyone's phones buzzed instantly. I pulled mine out beneath my desk. A text from my boyfriend, Tyler, flashed across the screen. "Hiding in supply closet. Someone has a gun. Where are you?" My blood ran cold. I showed Miss Brown my phone, my hand shaking. "Tyler says there's someone with a—" "I see exactly what's happening," she cut in, glaring at me. "You think you can stage a prank to get me in trouble? Get me fired? Sit down." A scream tore through the hallway. Not imaginary, not theatrical. Real. Even Miss Brown's expression faltered. Across the hall, Mr. Peterson's class was pitch black. No movement, no sound, just disciplined silence. Meanwhile, we were still fully exposed. Lights on, desks in rows, sitting ducks. Ben, the quiet kid who never argued with anyone, spoke up. "Miss Brown, please. This feels real." "Feelings aren't facts, Ben. Sit down." More running, more footsteps pounding the hallway floors. The PA crackled again, sputtered, died, and then bang, 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 closer, sharper, real. My chair flew back as I stood. "We need to hide! Now! Sit down or you're expelled!" Miss Brown lunged toward the light switch and blocked it with her entire body. Something inside me snapped clean in half. The fear, the disbelief, the helplessness, they turned into something fierce. "I don't care." I ran for the switch. Behind me, chaos erupted. Some classmates bolted for the safe corner. Others remained glued to their desks, torn between survival instinct and the fear of defying Miss Brown. She grabbed my arm, nails digging into my skin, screaming about rules and respect and consequences. I jerked free and slammed the lights off as the class finally panicked for real. We pushed desks, dragged tables, built a barricade with shaking hands. Someone sobbed. Someone whispered a prayer. Someone else whispered, "Please, please, please." All 23 students hid, all except Miss Brown. She stood tall at her desk, arms crossed, fury radiating off her like heat. She looked annoyed, offended, as if we'd embarrassed her. The door handle rattled. Every breath stopped. A shadow paused under the door. Breathing, maybe theirs, maybe mine, maybe all of ours. Footsteps moved on. 10 seconds felt like 10 years. The SWAT team found us 40 minutes later. Miss Brown still insisted it was a drill, still argued we were dramatic. still blamed us. The quiet kid from my sophomore English class who drew anime characters all day and barely spoke above a whisper. The kid who once borrowed a pencil from me and thanked me like I'd given him a kidney. The kid no one ever expected to hurt anyone, but the paramedic's hands were already tightening the blood pressure cuff around my arm, her voice gentle, asking if I could breathe, while all I could replay in my mind was the shadow. Stopping at our classroom door. Jake. Jake with a gun. Jake walking past us. Jake almost opening our door. Detective Santos crouched down beside my gurney with her notebook, her badge catching the light. She asked me to walk her through everything that happened inside Miss Brown's room. I told her about the announcement, about Miss Brown refusing the lockdown, about the gunshots. Every detail, every second. She wrote each word carefully, as if she already suspected the truth, that something was deeply wrong with our teacher. The parking lot was pure chaos. Parents sprinting, police yelling, news vans setting up like vultures. My mom broke through the police line still wearing hospital scrubs, mascara streaking down her cheeks. She grabbed me so tightly I couldn't breathe. She kept touching my arms, my face, my hair, convinced she'd find blood somewhere. When the detective tried to explain, Mom snapped, "She did what? She left them exposed!" Tyler's mom was crying too, hugging him like she might lose him again. And Tyler, he just stared, empty and shaking, like something inside him had cracked open. Detective Santos pulled me aside with a tablet in hand, showing screenshots of the texts I'd sent Tyler during the shooting. Every student in our class had sent the same messages to someone. Miss Brown won't let us hide. She's blocking the lights. She thinks this is fake. 23 matching stories. 2 kids died in the math hallway. 3 were in the hospital. All of them had teachers who followed protocol, except the girl grazed by a bullet through a door. And except us. When I got home, Dad drove in silence. No radio, no talking. Every loud noise made us jump, even the motorcycle at the red light. At dinner, I just stared at spaghetti I couldn't eat. My phone kept buzzing with classmates asking how Miss Brown could have done this. Nobody had answers. That night, I lay awake hearing the door handle rattling in my head over and over, hearing Miss Brown say, "Sit down or you're expelled," hearing the gunshots. School was canceled indefinitely. Counselors were available. None of it helped. Channel 8 played footage nonstop. Then Miss Brown's face filled the TV screen, standing in her driveway, calmly telling reporters she maintained control during chaos and her professional judgment saved lives. Mom threw the remote so hard it shattered the television. Tyler sent me a link to a video from Mr. Peterson's classroom. It was completely dark, silent, kids hidden. Through the wall, you could hear our teacher talking loudly about manufactured fear, her voice echoing while gunshots rang in the distance. The timestamp proved she said it at the exact moment she was blocking our light switch. Within 2 hours, the video had 50,000 views. The comments were savage. Parents furious, students terrified. Meanwhile, I stayed curled in my room, jumping at every noise. Mom left soup outside my door. I didn't touch it. The group chat exploded with talk of lawyers and lawsuits and district negligence, but all I could think about was how close we'd come to death because one woman refused to accept she wasn't in control. Principal Foster called and asked for my written statement. My mom grabbed the phone and told him everything would go through an attorney. Apparently, we were getting one. The next day, Ben's mom dropped him off. We sat on the porch, both shaking, both trying to talk but failing. He kept saying, "We almost stayed seated. We almost listened to her." His eyes were red. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. Later, Tyler showed me bruises on his knees from squeezing himself behind chemical shelves in the closet. He spoke quietly, flatly, like someone far away. "I thought you were gone," he said. We didn't talk much after that. We just sat together, breathing the same shaky air. By day 5, Mom found Rebecca Thompson, an attorney with walls covered in newspaper clippings about school safety cases. She listened to our whole story, her face sharpening with every detail. When Mom told her Miss Brown stood blocking the switch while gunshots got closer, Rebecca closed her folder slowly and said words that made my stomach drop. "What your teacher did wasn't just negligence, it was criminal endangerment." Then she said something scarier. Her behavior suggests she had a reason to ignore the danger. People don't react like that unless they're hiding something by the time the verdict came down. Guilty on all 23 counts plus depraved indifference. The courtroom didn't breathe. Miss Brown slumped back in her chair like someone had finally ripped the crown off her head. For the first time since the shooting, she looked small, scared, human. The judge read out the charges slowly, each one landing like a hammer. Parents cried openly, students covered their faces, a few reporters typed through tears. I watched her carefully, waiting for even the smallest flicker of remorse, but all she did was clench her jaw like the world had wronged her. Like she was the victim. Like she hadn't stood in a classroom full of terrified teenagers and treated our lives like pieces on her personal chessboard. 2 weeks later, at sentencing, I walked up to the podium with my victim impact statement shaking slightly in my hands. I made myself look directly at her. I told her she had taught me something. Just not what she intended. She taught me that authority without compassion is just cruelty. That ego without responsibility is deadly, and that when adults fail to protect children, children are forced to grow up too fast to save themselves. I said I would carry those 47 minutes for the rest of my life, but she would have to carry the choices she made. She blinked once, slowly, like nothing I said mattered. The judge gave her 18 years, parole possible after 12. When they cuffed her, she murmured, "I was maintaining standards." Even then, she couldn't admit the truth. Even then, she couldn't understand what she'd done. A month after sentencing, Tyler and I sat in his car outside the school, watching workers install new cameras and metal detectors. Everything looked different, but that didn't matter. We were different. Older somehow, harder, connected by something we didn't ask for and could never undo. He took my hand and squeezed it, his voice soft but steady. We survived. For the first time since that day, I believed him. Spring came. Ben stood at a school board meeting and delivered a speech that made half the room cry. He said no student should ever feel more afraid of a teacher's punishment than a gunman's bullets. He said that a system that protects adults over children is already broken. He said we weren't going to let this happen again. His voice didn't shake once. By fall, I started at State University studying education policy. I wanted to be the person who made sure no student ever sat in a classroom with someone like Miss Brown again. My roommate didn't recognize me from the news coverage, and for a few weeks it felt good to be anonymous, to just be Brianna again. But trauma has a way of living under the skin, quiet but permanent. Loud noises still made me jump. I still checked for exits whenever I walked into a room. Healing wasn't a straight line. Some days I was fine. Some days I relived every second. In November, they reopened room 203 as a memorial classroom. They asked me to speak. Standing where Miss Brown used to stand felt like walking into a ghost I hadn't finished grieving. I told the crowd that protecting children isn't about drills or paperwork. It's about listening when students say something is wrong. It's about believing them. It's about never choosing pride over safety. People wiped their eyes. I held my breath until it was over. Winter break came. Mom drove me home and we passed the schoolyard. Kids laughed, shot hoops, chased each other across the blacktop like nothing had ever happened there. I watched them through the window, my chest tight. "They look so young," I whispered. Mom squeezed my hand and said softly, "We all were." She was right. I would never be that young again. None of us would. Tyler and I met for coffee the next day, sitting in the same shop where we used to do homework like normal teenagers. We still flinched when someone dropped a tray. We still checked the exits, but this time, we didn't apologize for it. We'd earned those scars. Tyler reached across the table, lacing his fingers with mine. "We're writing new chapters now," he said. Cheesy, maybe, but true. Later that night, after a long drive home, I sat on my bed and thought about everything. About Jake, about the kids we lost, about Miss Brown's cold eyes and her final words, about the way we saved each other when no adult would. I realized something then, something simple but true. We weren't defined by those 47 minutes. We were defined by what we did inside them, by the choice to stand, by the choice to survive, by the choice to live, even when the person in charge told us not to.